All right, team, we're back with the Ask Maddie show today. You guys left your questions in the comment section down below and also your hot takes, and we're going to bring them up on the show today. So hopefully they are really good. We got a Velo question. We got some XRPL questions about it taking over Swift. Brad and Schwartz made some comments, so we're going to address that. Also, maybe Flare. Are we going to share, reveal our portfolio at the end of cycle and which networks are the best relating to layer ones? This is the Ask Maddie show. Matt, before we get into the show today, let the team know about Crypto Charge.
Hey guys, Crypto Charge is really a program that I've not just running for the last 4 years here, but it's something that I've wanted to do for probably almost like 7 or 8 years now. We do live updates Monday through Friday. That includes a macro update for my business partner Dan, educating you guys on things outside of the immediate world of crypto. We have our coin library where a lot of you guys are like, hey, what's a good entry price? Should I be DCA and should I be setting a limit-based order? That stuff is regulated, updated regularly in our coin library on the website. We have other learning materials there, and of course we have our Discord community. So that's going to be the ability to ask questions directly, interact with the community as a whole. And that all comes at $49 a month with code YouTube plus a 30-day free trial. I've done a lot of research in this market on different programs, what they offer. A lot of people with just the Discord access without any guaranteed number of updates will be charging well more than $50 a month. So I think that if you guys at least check out the 30-day free trial, you'd be very surprised with the amount of value you get for that price at our program.
All right, let's get into the questions for today. Benny the Jet says, I need a Velo update, please.
Yeah, so let's take a look at it, guys. Let's dress up the chart together here. Velo is one of my smaller cap plays here. Again, I mean, probably the whole bunch of API 3, Velo, and Casper being kind of just my small cap gems that I've really been betting pretty heavy on here. Haven't added too heavily to Velo as of late. Definitely been a little bit more focused on Filecoin. Velo is obviously, part of the Stellar network there and, utilizes that federated model for consensus. And I really do like betting on finance plays that have very, very small market caps because what's required to get us to some of these higher prices is very small amounts of money compared to, again, you compare things like, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even XRP at this point, billions of dollars are required to make some of these moves happen. Whereas, let's say, $1 billion enters the Velo market, you're getting a 10x out of it. So right. Let's take a look at what's happening here, though, right? And I know that I'm going to point to some structures that we've pointed to before.
Wait, Maddie, is it still below 100 million in market cap right now?
I think we're at 97 when I peeked at it just here a little bit ago. So I mean, maybe by the time we're done recording, it'll be 102 or something like that. But let's call it 100 million, give or take, here for Velo. When we take a look here at some of the support levels, one of the things that we can see here is we did a great job building a strong accumulative base in here from May of 23 all the way through December. So you had a clear low that was set here in 22. Obviously, prices were free falling through 22. Another great example of just bad market timing, maybe a great product, bad market timing. You finally, of course, see the whole market start to maybe show a little bit of strength here, not seeing that downtrend ensue so much. And we come back and we set this higher low in here. So, of course, setting that low above the previous low here, and that is all you want to see on macro charts is those higher highs and higher lows developed over longer periods of time. You built this big rounded base in here, and I pointed to this before as a cup and handle pattern. A lot of you guys maybe look at that and you're like, well, I'm not really so much in the patterns. That's perfectly fine. But really all you're looking for with the cup and handle patterns here is a rounded shape like this, right? So I'm just going to bring this in here. And again, this is not an exact science when we're drawing this out here. I'm just showing you guys the general shape. And then what you'll get after that is a handle. And sometimes people will look at the handle and they want to see the handle come exactly like this, and then they want to see that move higher. I think that this potentially could just be a handle that has been forming over a longer period of time, and this whole thing in here might be the handle. And when we look and we zoom out here and how we measure these measured moves or measured targets from our cup and handles, we measure from the base of the cup to the top of the cup. Maybe it stops here right around, this 1.4 cent area. Maybe the top of the cup actually ends up being all the way back here in August. But where I started to see the roundedness was here in February. So let's just on the conservative side say it's roughly an 800% move. And then we measure from the top of the cup that same percentage higher. And that would put us right around here, right around like that 14 cent mark if that measure move were to come into fruition here. Now, I'm also looking, though, on Velo at some of the imbalances that are at higher prices here. So an imbalance, again, team, is when you have a support levels developed. So from May of 21 all the way through September of 21, you develop a support level and you break down from that level without retesting that level as a new ceiling of support. That is what market makers leave behind as an imbalance zone. And it's a zone that market makers are likely to manipulate again in the future. So when we look at this big bullish structure in here and we see that we've been, developing those higher lows, and I think that's also what's happening here. So low, higher low, and finally now creating another higher low here, we're setting ourselves up to really start to hunt down some of these other areas of interest. And I think that somewhere between 7 and 8 cents and 23 to 28 cents are huge areas that could potentially get struck up in there. So we're seeing potentially a 5x up into that 7-8 cent region, and then upwards of maybe like a 20x up into that 28 cent region. So I see a lot of healthy structure in here, higher highs and higher lows, potentially a very large cup and handle structure that could be additional confluence. I never want you guys to look at a single structure like this and say, oh, well, I see cup and handle, so I'm going all in, right? We still want to make sure we're looking at, good risk to reward, making sure that we're buying a good support level on top of all of that. When I strip some of this away, guys, again, looking at some of the immediate support in here, we didn't deviate below our July lows here in 2024. So I think that that's a very strong sign as well. You guys can see that these two lows here are also developing a minor higher low here, kind of around that 1 point, let's just call it 1 cent region, give or take. So I think there's great risk to reward here. Very, very small market cap, strong fundamentals. I think it's a decent pick right now.
Nice. I did check before the show, and this was last talked about 4 months ago. And, that was in February, and now it is down 25%. So you are buying at a slight discount today, team, if you were looking to buy Velo. Just want to throw that out there. Michael says, how much of Swift will XRPL take? Brad said 14% in 5 years.
I'd love to see 14% in 5 years. I'm a long-term XRP bull, right? I'm planning on keeping about 20% of my total bag, into the bear. I built a good average. I like to be able to do a variety of different things with that XRP, including potentially leverage it and be able to use that for other cash flowing ventures without selling the XRP. You look at the Swift network, we're talking about annual amount of money that goes over Swift network, which again, by the way, is just a messaging standard, guys. It's not necessarily like an entity that's processing. We're talking about a messaging standard that can be used in a variety of different contexts. But we're talking about like 150 to 160 trillion dollars that moves over Swift network annually, which is a lot, right? And this is international. So of course, this is money that's not just moving here in the US. This is globally. So what, 15% of that, 14% of that, that's a pretty tremendous number. I would love to see that. I think that 5 years is maybe a little bit of a lofty goal to suggest that we absorb that much volume over that much time. I would say that if maybe we see regulation with stablecoin regulation come in faster than expected, yeah, that's maybe a reasonable goal. We have the Genius Act that is making some good strides right now, which would help a lot with stablecoin regulation and maybe get us to that goal a little bit faster. But honestly, in 5 years, if we even saw 3% of total, amount of Swift volume going over XRPL, I would be over the moon with that. Because I think this is going to be a slower process than a lot of people realize because there's a lot of moving pieces. And even let's say we get this Genius Act and we get all this regulatory framework here in the US for stablecoins, that still is not necessarily going to give us an immediate green light to do that same level of business in other countries that maybe have other barriers or bumpers that aren't compliant with what we have. So again, 5 years, I think that in the grand scheme, that's a very, very small amount of time. I'd love to see it. But again, I would be happy to even see a single digit amount of volume being done over XRPL in relation to Swift network.
I don't know, Matt. 5 years in crypto is kind of long, because think about the progression we've seen in the last 5 years. There's a lot of things we would have never thought about 5 years ago that's happening in crypto today. So maybe Brad knows something we don't.
Maybe he does. And maybe he's also insinuating that people are going to be moving away from Swift transfers and they're going to be moving more into, whatever customer facing solutions and working with partners that are partnered with XRPL or Ripple in that fact. And that's where they're maybe going to see some of that volume be taken away. So not so much that they're going to be utilizing the XRPL for the railways for Swift, but maybe absorbing and taking away some of that volume from Swift. And I think that's probably a more realistic number in that capacity. But I don't think that we're going to see XRPL as like, the main factor in 5 years, and that's where 14 to 50% of that volume goes. Again, just my best guess. I'd love to see more sooner, but I think that's probably the better indicator of a higher percentage being taken would be the volume actually being done on XRPL explicitly through partners. Marvin
says, what are your thoughts on the price potential for Flare, FLR, due to its interaction with XRP? Great video, thanks.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Flare. So I know there's been some decent developments as of late. I know they've been picked up with some other DEX partners and whatnot. Again, I think that they lost some of their traction from just taking so damn long to launch in this space. You really can't afford to wait that long. It's better to get it out there, flesh it out, learn about what people like, don't like, how they're actually using the product, than to wait so long. I know there's a lot of airdrop that people were waiting on too. But I know I have a fair amount of friends that probably, Andy, I'm sure you're watching the show right now and you're like, stop shit talking Flare, man. because you can't get more excited about it. But again, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I really think that they just like put themselves in a bad position by waiting too long. But when we look at the structure here, you have a lot of opportunity structurally that reminds me a lot of what we saw with XRP from 2013 through 2017. So let's just take a quick look at that here, guys. I'm just going to show you guys the XRP chart. We're going to come out and we're going to get rid of all this. And I'm going to use a tool called the bars pattern really quickly here, just so you guys can kind of see what we could potentially be expecting for something like Flare. Again, I'm not showing you guys what you should be expecting timeline and price wise, but you bring the bars pattern in here, and then we're going to go ahead and grab it all the way here, and then we're going to go ahead and copy this, and then we're going to go back to the Flare chart. So we'll go Flare, USD, and we're going to go to the crypto chart so we have as much data as possible. And I think that we could potentially be seeing something like we saw with XRP from 2013 through 2017. So when you look at some of the structure here, we also pointed to this with QNT as well, where you have kind of initial launch, you get some excitement in here, you go back into the bear market, you get a retrace in here. Again, not a one-for-one structure, but you guys can see that there's a lot of similarities in the structure here. You pull back, and you start to get kind of like that lower volume, not really breaking those new highs. And then you see from XRP here, there's just this long sideways low in here where not a lot was happening. I think that's probably where we're at right here. Again, does not need to be exact timeline wise. There's a lot of different catalysts that happened for XRP previously, but when you look at kind of just the general structure here, the big pennant, right, a general floor of support, you got the same situation here with XRP. And then you get kind of just that big explosion upwards. And this is just a classic compression structure. This is truly what does happen over longer periods of time, and especially if there's strong fundamentals. I do think that this is something that's possible for Flare. Some people will think that I may be being a little bit too conservative by pulling from the second high in here that was developed in 2024, because that only puts us towards like 8 to 20 cents towards those final targets for Flare, right? We can see that from current market price, which is elevated off the lows, right? We are up about 50% off the lows there, but from current market to the 1.618, maybe a 3.5x, upwards of maybe almost a 10x, up into that 4.236. Maybe we see an XRP situation where some of these higher extensions are hit because we've been in a compression for so long, where 36 to maybe 58 are possibilities in here. Some people would rather take this from the crazy wick that was established up here in 2023. I try to avoid that, and you guys can see that even when I look at Zcash and Casper and a variety of others, just because I don't see a lot of volume being done there. You had initial price offered and then just selling, right? And there's a lot of reasons that can happen. But I would rather us use these highs in here that are actually registered. That would put you somewhere between 23 cents and 60 cents on the upside if you really wanted to use this range in here, giving you maybe again a 10 to 11x, upwards of maybe a 30x towards those higher targets. But I would definitely use like a multi-step approach here with exiting out. Maybe you keep a little bit of a bigger portion of your bag for the longer term because you feel like price has been suppressed for so long. But I would definitely try to, just like Ondo and other projects that have a more limited piece of price action, maybe try to do a multi-step exit, rebuy back in, and then see if we get a little bit higher in there. But just try to be careful with this, guys. Try to mitigate risk regardless of how you feel fundamentally about it.
Devil's advocate here. I just, because it makes me always, when we bring up charts like this with large wicks, I always think about the polka dot chart where you had that large wick and then it went and refilled that in 2021. And so, Maddie's absolutely right. Be conservative. I do want to play devil's advocate, Matt, because we are always like taking the conservative approach to exiting, and that is worthwhile. That is absolutely smart to do. Sell early, sell a little bit early, have an early take profit, and then later on, 4.236 maybe, and then maybe hold a little bag later, maybe look for an 8 extension. I know I am for my XRP, just because I know I'm going to be around my computer all the time. I'm going to be staring at the chart. And, if I don't sell that last bag, I'm going to be okay with it, because I'm going to be making so much money on my first take profit, selling a majority of it within TP1, a lot within TP2, and then just hold a little bit left for TP3, maybe looking to see, so I can be that guy that said, oh, I sold at the 8 extension on an XRP, And so I did just want to kind of bring that up, Matt, because, while the price targets on the website are conservative, they're, price targets that I have on a lot of my crypto charts. Do want to throw that out there that, it's not always off the table. If we do see a wick like that, that can happen in the future, which you've mentioned in the past before.
Absolutely.
No comment on that? I thought that was a good comment. All right. Glenn says, can we expect a portfolio reveal when it's over?
So I'm pretty transparent with you guys about what I'm investing in, where that DCA is going, kind of where I'm heaviest. I enjoy a little bit of financial privacy in my life, and I think that that's pretty normal. I think a lot of people want to get out here and tell you exactly how much money they made in this, that, and the other, and where they're putting every last dollar. And I think I share so much, and I'm so transparent with a lot that I actually enjoy a little bit of that. So when it's all over, I'm actually still going to keep a lot.
Can you show us your bank account?
Do you guys? Can you guys send me your statements? Can I just your most recent statement? That's honestly something that I really do enjoy, and my team respects that as well. So again, there's nothing about percentage wise how I'm allocated, or if anyone's curious about what types of assets I'm exposed to or what that percentage looks like, I'm always happy to share those numbers. But myself and also my business partner Dan also enjoys a little bit of that financial privacy, so I won't be sharing numbers afterwards or now, and that's just a personal choice. Same reason you look at talk to people who are into metal stacking, and they'll talk to you about the different kinds of assets they have. They'll talk to you about the different types of metals that they have or stuff that they're interested in, but they don't ever talk about the exact amount and where it's all kept, because guess what, we're also public figures out here, and I'm not trying to put a big target on my back. So I will be keeping dollar amounts private, but of course we'll talk about some of the bigger winners and how we're reallocating our portfolio and all that good stuff. The stuff that actually matters to you guys. The dollar amount should not matter to you guys. It shouldn't affect how you guys invest at all.
Yeah, have you seen these people be getting attacked online? I know there's like a famous family right now that talks about how they strategize their cold storage solutions, like they have it in actual multiple countries, so that if you go to one of the homes, you're not going to get all the seed phrase, and so you have to make like an extra trip to another country, which is a little bit over the top, but I do understand, because a lot of people are being targeted right now. I don't know if you noticed within the past couple months, people are being targeted via the things they've talked about with their crypto. Being taken hostage. There's a couple of these online, and some prominent figures that have been involved with this. And so, it kind of makes you wonder, I mean, it was different when I was in college, and now it's like, in college, I lived, at a gate community around. I felt safe as a clam, I felt like a king of a kingdom. And now it's like, you're in the house now. It's like, anyone can come knocking at any given time. And so that kind of gets you a little worried there. So yeah, whatever. Last question here. Crypto Maxi says, if you had to move most of your funds into a couple of assets that are only layer ones, which networks?
I mean, I wouldn't really have to make a lot of moves because I'm in a lot of L1s right now. Zcash, XRP, Algorand, HBAR, those are all super solid L1s. I would say that's like the majority of my portfolio is L1 based solutions. So I don't think that I would personally, again, my personal portfolio wise, average wise, balance wise, I don't think I would need to make any big moves right there. But again, out of some of like the stuff that's kind of depressed right now, out of the L1s, maybe VeChain, Algorand are probably two of the most depressed L1s out of my personal portfolio right now. I think those would be great considerations if you were really hyper focused on L1s. Even though I think there's a little bit of a better risk to reward ratio out there, it's not in my portfolio right now. Cardano is also a great L1 to consider for smart contracts, is again out of some of the big boys out there. So again, it also depends on your risk tolerance, how much volatility you want to deal with when it comes to market capitalization, because those all have vastly different market capitalizations, and some of them are in better structural spots than others right now. So those are some of the ones that we talk about regularly on the show. I think that Solana is a little expensive right now, and I think that it also has some work to flesh some stuff out when it comes to scalability. We saw that even just some intense meme coin volume basically completely handicapped the network for almost a week's time. So I think that there's some good potential out there with a lot of these L1s, but some of them that have received the volume that would probably be a tenth or a 20th of what institutional volume would be on that network, have something to prove when it comes to actually being institution ready. So I would say that probably Algo and VeChain would probably be the two out of the things I cover regularly on the show right now for you to consider risk to reward wise, as well as being just solid L1s providing something proprietary to the space.
It's real value right there, Maddie. Team, I hope you got that. I hope you received that. I hope that didn't just go in one ear and out the other. I hope you're actually taking this to heart, like, the discussion with Velo or Flare. You're looking at these charts, looking at your portfolio and seeing if it's a worthwhile investment. There are still cryptos like that. I know I've backed off a lot on my buying, but, when I go back in, I'm just, turning it on Coinbase, and I'm buying the assets that are still in deep accumulation, because most of my assets are up right now. The one. There's only one that you're down on right now. We all know which one that is. So, yeah. Oh well. Team, like the video. We will see you guys next week. Bye.